Hey everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, and welcome to the first episode of Snek Talks. What's Snek Talks, you might ask? Well, this is going to be an unscripted, very largely improved, very loosely edited series of videos where I talk about things that would either gunk up the pacing in a review, but still are worth talking about, and still staying in the category of games, gaming, and nerd culture. Put simply, that means that things are going to be a bit less focused, a bit less, maybe less coherent, depending on how well I can do improv, than, say, Snek Suites, NDX, and Obscure Reviews, which are much more strictly formatted. Ideally, I want to get these out on Fridays, but that's going to hinge a bit on my sound guy, Cog Studio Works, who is awesome, and you should all visit him at his Fiverr page, link in the description. And broadly, we're just going to hit bullet points in terms of conversation pieces, meaning I don't have a full backbone of the discussion. It's going to be much more freeform. To start with, a proper introduction is in order, as I've never actually given one. I am, in fact, the Hipster Snek, and that is all I shall be known for the time being. The reason that anonymity is going to remain a theme is because I do have a day job, and it's the sort of day job where having an opinion is not always a good thing. So to keep it simple and to keep personal and entertainment lives separate, I am just a Snek. It's as simple as that. Now, why is the Snek my avatar? That's a different story entirely. Now, originally, for this channel, I was actually planning on something more along the lines of a hipster rabbit, or a hipster hare, or a hipster jackalope. But my roommate, World Tree Cycles, who's also part of the Tomodachi Brothers anime podcast coming soon, challenged me to do something a little bit more creative. The snake, specifically the Snek in this context, being a spoof of the Gadsden flag in MS Paint, No Step on Snek, became the inspiration for the original avatar, which is just this angry little MS Paint worm that I very poorly MS painted some glasses, hipster hair, and a beard on. When I went to Setsuri, the guy who did the art for my icon and for my channel and Subscribestar pages, he was able to take that crappy little MS Paint doodle and turn it into a really robust icon. So I kind of feel it's pretty removed from its otherwise politically charged origin. That's one of the things I want to actively avoid between the Hipster Snek channel and the future podcasts. We're not going to get into that. This is a gaming channel and we're here to have fun. As I mentioned in recent videos, the update schedule for this channel is the main reviews are going to go live every Monday at noon Central Standard Time. Now, the reason for that is that's kind of the groove we fell into. This is a multi-man operation between scripting, capturing the game footage, editing the game footage to usable bits, and then Cog doing the sound work, which is a different kettle of fish that I don't even have a hand in. Once all those pieces are brought together, you then have a completed video. To give you some idea of how a general week may go, scripting always takes place over 2 days. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I may hammer out the script. That's because I never record off a script that I've only spent 1 day on. I always give it at least one night's sleep and then another look over the next day to ensure that there's not anything I want to add, or if it all makes sense and that it's able to be read in such a way that I won't stumble over myself a million times while trying to do delivery. Not that I'm exactly having a great time of that without the script, but I digress. The next major part of the process is actually capturing game footage, which happens both before and after scripting. Generally, I play the games that I review, at least up for a practice run, before scripting starts, and then in earnest really afterwards, because then I know what parts that I mentioned specifically in the script, and therefore what parts I really need to highlight for the sake of the videos. Now, earlier on, I think back in like the Monster Rancher 1 video is a good example, things were a bit less focused. I didn't really have this down to the art that I have it to today. And that's largely in part thanks to World Tree Cycles and Cog Sound Editing they really help me focus and really hammer out the best parts of the games that we're trying to show off. After all, these are games that are either obscure or indie devved and therefore have very minimalistic advertising budgets. So it's important to us to make a good impression of these games because the entire point of this channel is I want people to see these underappreciated games, pick them up for themselves, and be like, man, that is a good game that I would have completely missed otherwise. So to be able to talk about more about gaming in depth, to talk about things that, as I said earlier, would bloat a review and drag its pacing to a halt, I'm going to supplement that with Snek Talks that will hopefully become live on Friday at some set time. I hope to get that ironed out soon. So with that out of the way, and a better understanding of where this channel's coming from and going forward, let's talk about a topic that I started to talk about in my very first video and never followed up on. And this is kind of near and dear to me because it's also part of the reason why this channel exists in the first place. And that's because there are so many reviews of Monster Rancher on YouTube where people will play the game for 5 minutes and say, well, it's a Pokemon clone, and end the review right there. These people only have a skin-deep understanding of a franchise that's much more nuanced and deep than that. I can't tell you just how frustrating it is to be a Monster Rancher fan and to listen to these half-baked reviews, these people who played maybe Monster Rancher 1 and maybe 2 if they were fortunate or could be bothered. And then these guys who watched maybe 3 episodes of the anime and think that they understand all the themes and nuances. Yeah, it's a show for kids. It's not super complicated, but it's more complicated than 3 episodes worth of content. Especially since the series may have a Monster of the Week formula, but it's not stuck on that. But anime aside, we'll get these game reviews, where people will specifically just say, Pokemon clone because it's a monster game, and then they'll stop analyzing it any further than that. Monster Rancher shares more mechanically with Princess Maker. Now, that's another obscure game, and maybe one I should cover in the future, but Monster Rancher is not a Pokemon clone. Digimon, at its heart, is not a Pokemon clone. Now you can say, oh, it's a clone because it's a monster game, but then you're ignoring the fact that monster games as a whole started with Shin Megami Tensei. Now, if you're not familiar with that, that's another obscure series that gave birth to a little series that you might know as Persona. Persona is the Diet Coke version of SMT. Imagine a tough-as-nails monster game where the entire conceit is you couldn't really catch or breed monsters, you had to talk them into joining you. Now, if that sounds like the mechanic was stolen wholeheartedly in Undertale, you would be basically correct, except that in SMT, when you recruited a monster, they would actually join your party and become usable. That is essentially how monster games started. Now, mechanically, Pokemon is very much in line with SMT. It's a team-building game focused on elemental diversity and leveling up stats in a traditional fashion. Monster Rancher doesn't do that. Monster Rancher raises individual stats by training, and your major enemies, in addition to just the AI enemy monsters, is time itself. This falls more in line with the Princess Maker model, like I said before, or those weird Japanese idol games that don't usually get brought over unless your name is Neptunia. Oh, and I'm not a proud man, but I will admit, yes, I did play Producing Perfection twice. I did a run through with Vert, did a New Game Plus, and then decided that the game was kind of stupid and, well, not my proudest trip to GameStop, but it was one of my more efficient ones. Putting that aside, there really is nothing new under the sun. Every game cribs from either another game or another concept. The idea of Super Mario Bros. Was stemmed from other platforming-type games, but just did a different twist on it. And that's what Monster Rancher does for monster games. It takes things in a slightly different direction with a more stat and time focus, rather than a traditional RPG leveling up story structure. I understand what they mean because they're trying to say, oh, it's a monster game. But calling Monster Rancher a Pokemon clone is like calling Overwatch a Doom clone. You're only right in the most superficial and wrong way possible of being correct. Now, don't misconstrue this as me hating on those people. It's not uncommon for obscure games to be misunderstood. A lot of games in their heyday, like Deadly Premonition's a good example of this, were really misunderstood. But that's another reason why this channel exists. I want people to understand that just because it's not necessarily the mainstream or the hottest selling game on the market, that there's no value to it, or that it shouldn't be worth another look. Legend of Legaia was beaten in the sales race by Final Fantasy VII, and its sequel Legaia 2 by Final Fantasy X. Does that mean Legaia is worth less? No. No way. Absolutely no way. But it's worth remembering that every game is different, and even if they fall into similar subgenres, we shouldn't be quick to write them off for what they aren't. If that makes any sense at all. And now that I've gotten that off my chest, this has been the Hipster Snek, and this is the first episode of Snek Talks. Now, like I said, this is a bit more scatterbrained than my usual style, but hopefully a little more human and a chance to talk about stuff that I otherwise can't. I hope you enjoy. If you did, leave a like down below and a comment telling me if you like this format or not. If you want more content like this, hit the subscribe and bell icon. As said, we're aiming to put these out on Fridays, have alternating upload schedules. And with that, I'm the Hipster Snek. This is Snek Talks, and I'll talk at you next time.